Mom was clutching a knife in her hand, her gaze full of hatred and despair. At the other end of the room stood a girl, frightened but too accustomed to fear to scream. That girl was Clara Bow. This is how her story began, the story of a girl from the slums of Brooklyn, destined to dazzle Hollywood with her light, though behind the spotlight lay darkness. Few know what Clara had to endure before her face appeared on screens worldwide. Poverty, hand-me-downs, hunger, these were not just challenges but her reality. A mentally ill mother who could hug and strike in the same instant. An indifferent father who seemed to have forgotten he had a daughter. She was a silent film icon, the it girl, a symbol of the jazz age. But behind the spotlight's glare and the luxurious dresses was a woman whose life was a tragedy. This is the tragic story of Clara Bow, her rise, struggle, and fall behind the spotlight. On July 29, 1905, in Brooklyn, New York, a girl was born whose name would one day light up Hollywood's skyline, Clara Bow. Her childhood unfolded in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods, where every day was a struggle for survival. The noisy, multifaceted Brooklyn hid within its dirty streets a little girl whose life was marked by hardship and loneliness from the very beginning. Here, amidst the constant hum of factories and human voices, the story began of someone destined to overcome it all. Clara was born into a family where the word home sounded more like a mockery than a promise of warmth and support. Robert Bow, her father, was an inconsistent man. He often disappeared in search of work, but such efforts rarely bore fruit. His indifference toward his daughter seemed to cement her early feelings of unworthiness. To Robert, Clara was more a burden than a beloved child. Her mother, Sarah Gordon, was the opposite extreme. A mental disorder made her volatile and cruel. She frequently resorted to physical punishments and cutting words that left deep scars in Clara's heart. But one incident stood out among the rest. When young Clara won her first movie contest, her mother tried to kill her, believing acting to be a disgrace to the family. The knife in Sarah's hands and the terror in Clara's eyes left an unhealed wound in her memory. Clara Bow grew up in a world where her dreams of something greater than a life of poverty clashed with harsh reality. From an early age, the girl felt like she didn't belong. Her father didn't care for her, her mother turned her life into a nightmare, and the children around her only deepened her isolation with their mockery. Clara saw herself only as a burden, unwanted and unloved. One of the most traumatic episodes of her childhood was another brush with tragedy. Clara once held the lifeless body of a child who had died in a fire. This moment was etched into her memory as her first bitter encounter with loss. Poverty became her constant companion. Her family crammed into a dark apartment without proper heating or electricity. Torn clothes and hunger. This was what Clara knew of childhood. Classmates mocked her accent and appearance, making her even more withdrawn. Clara had almost no friends, and loneliness became her constant state. But amidst this chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Clara found solace in her dreams of cinema. Visits to local movie theaters, even for just a couple of cents, allowed her to escape reality and imagine herself in the place of the heroines who came to life on screen. Poverty and suffering tempered her character. Every pain and humiliation added stubbornness and determination to her soul. Clara Bow, the girl from Brooklyn, began to realize that her path was a fight, and she was determined to win. In 1921, Clara Bow's life made its first desperate leap out of the shadows. Winning a beauty contest not only earned her a title, but also became her ticket to a world where she was finally noticed. However, this world was far from the welcoming place she dreamed of. Her success in the contest opened doors to Hollywood, a place where talent sparkled but envy thrived. Clara's poor background drew scorn from her colleagues, who casually dismissed her as the slum girl. On set, she faced not just the cameras but also ridicule. Actresses accustomed to lives of luxury saw her as an outsider. Sarcastic remarks echoed at every turn, and many deemed her unworthy to stand among them. But Clara didn't let their opinions shatter her dreams. Her natural talent and charisma began to catch the attention of directors. She worked harder than anyone else, proving that she deserved her place in the spotlight. Despite the rocky path, she gradually won the hearts of fans and found those who believed in her. Clara quickly realized that Hollywood was not just about fame, but also about being constantly under the gaze of strangers. Her vibrant personality became a magnet for scandals, both real and fabricated. Her Brooklyn accent sounded to high society like a jarring note disrupting a symphony. Journalists seized on this, labeling her as a streetwise roughneck. Her loud laughter, blunt honesty, and inability to hide her emotions irritated those around her. Clara boldly made her mark by choosing outfits that highlighted her figure and smoking in public. In the 1920s, such behavior was akin to defying societal expectations, which dictated that women should remain modest and noble. The press quickly learned how to turn her into a sensation. Clara was often linked to romantic affairs and wild parties she had never even hosted. Her photo on the front page of a newspaper guaranteed sales, even if the story was entirely fabricated. Yet behind this dazzling image lay a profound loneliness. Despite the adoration of her fans, she felt isolated. The hostility of her colleagues and public judgment deepened her insecurities. But within Clara burned a fierce determination. Not anger at the world, but at a fate that had tried to break her since childhood. She continued to wrestle with the traumas of her past, but those dark moments fueled her drive to move forward. For her, success was a matter of survival, proof that even a girl from impoverished Brooklyn could dazzle Hollywood with her radiant energy. And so her story continued. Clara's journey to Hollywood began with her first roles in silent films. Her natural charisma was so powerful that audiences couldn't take their eyes off the screen. She hadn't yet mastered professional acting techniques, but her ability to convey emotions and let authenticity on camera more than made up for it. Producers quickly realized that they discovered a one-of-a-kind star. In 1927, the film It became her triumph. Clara embodied the image of the girl with magnetism, that elusive yet captivating charisma the audience adored. After the film's release, she became known as the It Girl, cementing her name in the history of cinema. Audiences saw Clara not just as a star, but as one of their own, an ordinary girl who had achieved the extraordinary. Her naturalness on screen became a symbol of sincerity in a world dominated by illusion. A pivotal moment in her career was her introduction to director Clarence Badger, who was the first to recognize her true talent. In the early stages, Clara was often used as little more than a decoration in scenes. Her roles were superficial, and she might have remained overshadowed by other actresses if not for her hard work and the genuine emotion she brought to every scene. The film Wings, in 1927, became the first in cinema history to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. For Clara, being part of this project meant much more than any other role. It was her breakthrough to a new level. The film showcased her ability to convey drama and depth, solidifying her status as a serious actress. Clara proved she wasn't confined to the role of a coquette. Her repertoire included comedies, dramas, and even romantic films. Each genre became a new stage for her to showcase her multifaceted talent. Hollywood exploited Clara's popularity mercilessly. By the mid-1920s, she was working on multiple films simultaneously with almost no time to rest. This relentless pace led to exhaustion, and neither recognition nor success could ease the pressure she faced. Clara encountered the harsh realities of the film industry. Contracts she had signed early in her career took away a significant portion of her earnings, and refusing them would have jeopardized her future. The advent of sound films presented a major challenge. Her Brooklyn accent sounded unfamiliar to the new audience, and her fear of the microphone only heightened the tension. Though she tried her best to adapt, technological progress revealed her vulnerabilities. Fame did not bring Clara peace. Despite the recognition and crowds of admirers, she felt isolated. Her insecurities rooted in childhood trauma continued to haunt her. Her path to fame on the surface appeared to be a story of triumph. But behind the scenes, it was a battle against the Hollywood system, societal expectations, and her own inner struggles. She had achieved the spotlight she had once dreamed of, but that spotlight only amplified her loneliness. Her personal life was also far from smooth. Clara Bow's personal life was like a whirlwind, vivid, passionate, yet profoundly unstable. Her relationships with men flared up like sparks but burned out just as quickly. The roots of this instability lay in her traumatic childhood. The deep mistrust instilled by her parents' cruelty made her fear her betrayal, rendering her connections fragile. Among those who came close to Clara were notable figures like actor Gilbert Roland and director Victor Fleming. These relationships, intense and passionate, often spiraled into storms fueled by her jealousy and fear of attachment. She struggled to open up completely, and her anxieties frequently sabotaged even the most promising romances. The relentless attention of the press added to her challenges. Hollywood journalists thrived on creating sensational stories, often linking Clara romantically with her colleagues, including the legendary Clark Gable. Most of these tales were fabricated, yet they shaped her public image, both alluring and scandalous. Clara's boldness and self-expression was always a challenge to the norms of her time. Her daring fashion choices, uninhibited behavior, and willingness to engage with men outside formal settings clashed with the rigid standards of the 1920s. To conservative society, her actions and persona appeared provocative, and rumors only fueled the fire. One of the most infamous scandals involved accusations made by her former personal secretary. In a letter that became public, Clara was accused of hosting so-called immoral parties involving orgies, alcohol, debauchery, and men. These allegations struck a heavy blow to her reputation. The press eagerly sensationalized the story, spreading rumors that nearly destroyed her career. Clara found herself isolated. Many of her colleagues, fearful of tarnishing their own reputations, distanced themselves from her. She was left to face public condemnation alone, forced to defend her name in solitude. In an attempt to find stability and peace, Clara married actor and politician Rex Bell in 1931. She made the difficult decision to leave her career behind to focus on family life. This marriage marked a new chapter, a chance to escape the chaos of Hollywood. However, her inner demons didn't leave her. Anxiety and paranoia, which had haunted Clara since her youth, became significant challenges in the relationship. She lived in constant fear that her husband might betray her trust. Motherhood brought its own set of difficulties. The couple had 2 sons, but Clara's mental health issues made it hard for her to fully embrace motherhood. Her struggles with emotional stability created uneven and tense relationships with her children. And what about her career? In the 1930s, Clara Bow began to lose her popularity. Hollywood, which had once elevated her to the pinnacle of fame, now turned its back on her. Challenges in the film industry marked the beginning of the end for her dazzling career. The transition to sound films was disastrous. Her strong Brooklyn accent sounded out of place on screen, and her fear of the microphone only heightened her anxiety. Clara's career gradually declined. After several failed projects, studios declared that her star had faded. Offers stopped coming, and her name was overshadowed by the rise of new Hollywood stars. Her professional setbacks were accompanied by financial difficulties. Despite earning millions during the height of her career, Clara faced mounting debts. She became a victim of her own extravagance and the manipulations of people who exploited her for their own gain. And things only got worse. Clara tried to find her place in life, but her battle with her inner demons made this an almost impossible task. Her mental health deteriorated rapidly. In the 1940s, she was admitted to a psychiatric clinic where she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Treatment became a necessity, but returning to a normal life seemed out of reach. For Clara, the fall was excruciating. She felt betrayed by Hollywood, the very industry that had once elevated her to stardom. The loss of fame, scandals, and her mental health struggles turned her life into an ongoing battle, with each day presenting a new challenge. What was Clara searching for? She sought simple, human happiness, but every step forward came at a tremendous cost, as if the world that had once given her everything now set insurmountable obstacles in her path. Clara Bow spent her final years far from Hollywood. After ending her film career, she settled with her husband Rex Bell on their family ranch in Nevada. This secluded rural life was meant to be a refuge, a chance to escape her bright yet painful past. However, the simplicity of life on the ranch did not bring her peace. Her mental health continued to deteriorate. Paranoia and depression became constant companions. Clara withdrew into herself, suffering from bouts of fear and the persistent feeling that she was being judged or followed, even in her own home. She rarely interacted with even her closest family members, avoided visitors, and almost never left the house. Her physical health also declined. Years of stress and isolation had taken a toll on her body. The once vibrant and energetic image of Clara faded, and life on the ranch became a quiet existence, far removed from the glory she'd once known. On September 27, 1965, Clara Bow passed away from a heart attack. She was just 60 years old. Her death came suddenly, though it was not entirely unexpected. Years of health issues and emotional turmoil had left little hope for a long life. At the time of her passing, only her closest family members were by her side, her sons and a few relatives. Despite her efforts to build a family and find happiness far from Hollywood, Clara never fully escaped her deep sense of loneliness. News of her death shocked those who had known Clara during her years of fame as the jazz-age girl. Older fans remembered her with fondness, but for the younger generation, she'd already become a name from the past, a symbol of a bygone era. The sunset of Clara Bow's life was marked by the tragedy of isolation. Once a radiant star adored by millions, she ended her journey far from the lights of the camera and the applause of the crowds. Her passing was a stark contrast to her brilliant rise, quiet, almost unnoticed by the world. She lived a life full of struggle, a quest for happiness and inner conflict, but she left behind memories of an era where her star shone brightest of all.